Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hi, we're talking today with Connie Kanella Aramento, who joins us on the podcast. Connie is CEO of Connie Kanella Consulting, LLC. She's an intuitive self-awareness coach, educator, speaker, and leader in learning and development with higher education. And as a Gallup certified strengths coach, Connie is not new to the coaching world. She has coached thousands of people since 2005. She's spoken at expos, keynoted at conferences, taught college courses, and has been featured on Medium.com and Disrupt Magazine. She has also written numerous self-help workbooks and co-authored Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing. Connie has had many different passions, but today we're going to be talking about human design and some tips that you can apply human design to business. As a heart-centered certified human design practitioner, her mission, she says, is to bridge the gap between leadership and well-being through spiritual growth. And I love that. I love the idea of looking at business and leadership as spiritual, soulful work. So let's welcome Connie. Thanks so much for joining us today, Connie.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. And my dog is excited to be here. All right. So just getting started here. So let's talk a little bit about, just give us some of the basics of what human design is and how it helped you. Love it. Love it. So gosh, such a long story, but I'll do it justice here in a quick way. So back in 2016, had hit probably the most difficult time in my life. 2 small kids at home. Completely burnt out, trying to build my business, working full time, trying to push, and got to a point where I was out of work for a few months and really hit what I would consider my lowest point. And at the time, I had an amazing mentor who happened to be someone who was engaged in human design for about 20 years. Asha Ramakrishna, shout out to her and all her wonderful wisdom. And she introduced me to human design at that point. And she said, hey, Connie, based on your birth date information, you are a projector. You're not meant to work a 9 to 5, push, and in the societal way and how it teaches us. And so that was really a shock to me and my introduction to say, wait, I want to know more about this human design system. So certainly that introduced me to understanding it really as a system that integrates not only your astrology, but also the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, the Hindu chakra system, and science and quantum mechanics really together to understand our personality, our purpose, how we make decisions in our life, and how we can really better understand ultimately how to live a joyful life. And so that was the beginning.
Yeah, that's very cool. What I hear in that too, that I think a lot of us can resonate with is how this really helped you stop striving to be what you thought you were supposed to be and allows you to become who you are. And that is the glorious work that we're all trying to do here. Live in our purpose. We need to really become who we are, right? So wonderful. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about human design.
So, quick rundown. So, I will tell you, when I first was introduced to it, one of the first things that I was told is going to take you 7 years, Connie, in order to really understand it. And I said, what? How is, here I am, like, get up, but, using all these tools to train other people, like, how, Enneagram, like, how is this even different? They weren't kidding. There are so many layers to human design, and I'm still learning each and every day. And I will say that it's definitely, I think, since COVID really sort of opened up, there's a lot of talk about, a lot of hype. In a nutshell, there are 5 types within human design. So real quick, sort of overview, 5 types. There are 5 different authorities, which is ultimately, how we make decisions. There are 9 centers, which are similar to the chakra system with 2 more, as well as there are 12 profiles, and happy to sort of dive into that as we talk a little bit about business and implications, 36 different channels, and the 64 gates that tie back to the I Ching. So aside from the planetary symbols. So I think that there's a lot of data, let's just say, right, to there with that. But I think the most important thing for me to at least just share is to start with understanding if you're one of the 5 types. And the easiest way to do that is to run your body graph or your chart. And you can do this online at Genetic Matrix. There's lots of, that's where I go, but there's a lot of different places where you can run your body graph as long as you know your date, birth, time, location, et cetera, et cetera.
We'll put your recommendations in the show notes. So anybody that wants to run after they listen to this, they want to run their thing, they can just go in the show notes.
Love it. So the 5 types is that you're either a manifesting generator or a generator. And I'm going to say those 2 together because those are types that are here really to work. They're here to be part of that workforce. They're actually the majority of our population. And the reason why they're there is because they have a defined sacral. And the sacral is really that life force energy, right? When we think about that within our bodies and really our creativity, our emotions, right? All of those things are really we're tapping into our sacral and really asking ourselves the questions, am I here? They're here ultimately to respond to life, right? So they're here to respond to what's happening and do that and build wonderful things. So manifesting generators are here to inform and to build, while generators are really here to build over time. Then we also have our manifestors. Our manifestors are here to inform. My brother's a manifestor. I know you're all going to go and run all your charts for your entire family and your kids. I highly recommend that. And your business and your teams. I do this all the time to better understand everyone and how to work together and work with everyone. But manifestors are really here to inform. Their throat is defined. And so it's an opportunity for them to speak and to share their wisdom really with the world. But most importantly, manifestors have this vision. They have the ability to see. And I think that that's really key. They're not necessarily here to let's say, complete the work, right? That's really connected to the generators and the manifesting generators. Then as projectors are here to advise and guide. They're not here to work a traditional sort of 9 to 5 work day. They're here to really wait for invitations. And that really depends on your inner authority. And they're here to sort of lead and orchestrate everything and lead sort of the guiding the manifesting generators, guiding sort of the generators and the manifestors. And then lastly, we have the reflectors. And the reflectors are really here to be a reflection of the environment in which that they're in. And, within human design, because there's so many layers within the body graph in terms of, what's open centers, which is really how we receive information from the rest of our world, right? We're taking it all in is sort of what we say when we have those open centers, which are not colored in, versus defined, which is what we're giving to the world externally. And so just imagine that we're all different types engaging with each other that are either giving and receiving information. And that's ultimately what all these types are doing together. And we need to work with each other and connect with each other in different ways. So similarly to a different personality assessment, right? This is sort of the comparison that I would say that's pretty clear, that it's sort of seen as that, as human design is like that, but way deeper, much different. I will say that it's my go-to when I want to learn more about
I
others.
will tell you, when I first, people for years were telling me, Michelle, you don't know human design? I was like, no. And they're like, you should. And I was like, okay. Finally, I looked into it. And me, like a lot of other people, are like a little overwhelmed by it because there's just so much information.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, my husband, for God love him, how much he supports me, but he is not himself like this spiritual guru, right? He is like a bit of a realist, he's a total realist, right? I don't know. We marry these opposites. And so my husband was willing to take the human design test.
I love it.
And he was floored, people. I'm telling you, this is somebody who's like, yeah, I don't even know that this intuition thing. And I believe the spirituality and intuition thing is for you, Michelle, but not for me. But when he read that, it was groundbreaking. It really, he was like, this is creepy. Like, so I highly recommend taking, the test itself or whatever you call it, just to find that out.
It's really not a test, right? It's just your birth date information. And because of the astrology, connection, that's sort of the guide that shares what it is. And the key piece behind really human design is the founder, Ra Uru, back in 1987, he received a vision. This is sort of what he heard the voice and he channeled this. And so that's where it came from. And certainly since then, right, Gene Keys is sort of tied a little bit to human design. There are some other pieces that are sort of taken in other contexts, but this is sort of deep and there's lots of layers. And the key part behind this, I think, is that, your soul was created 3 months prior to your birth, right? So, and this holds this special blueprint for who you are. And that's the part that we don't really get in anything else. So it's both. It's sort of the thing that you're conscious of the day you were born. This is your astrology. But then there's more to sort of your purpose that you're here and what you're here to do. And so it really gives you more of that information so that you can integrate both, and it's unconscious and conscious. And so that's, when you look at the body graph, there's coloring in terms of red and black. The black, the colors are indicative of the conscious and the subconscious piece. So that's something just to keep in mind. The red is the life story, right? The black, which is on the right side, is basically the soul purpose.
So when people go ahead and go to the website and plug in their birth date and place, then they'll see the picture will come up and all the information will come up and they'll be able to see the colors you're talking about.
Absolutely. And, I always get questions about, well, what do the colors mean of the different centers? Because sometimes the different centers are yellow or brown or red. That doesn't matter. But the channels, which is basically two of the gates that are connected together, create a channel. And so a gate gives us our more about our personality. Our gates really share with us, I like to consider a little bit of the lessons that we're here to learn in life and what we're here to share with others, right? So, I have gate 51. I'll just use that as an example. Gate 51 is the shock. It's called shock, which is really about sort of experiencing shock in my life in order to change something within me. Now, that's also tied to gate 25, which is all about self-love. So it's really about sort of shocking me, right, towards self-love because I have that connection. So I have had many experiences that happen that are sort of like, hey, Connie, boom, you need to take the time for yourself that's shocking for you to really take care of yourself and really to nurture yourself and to love yourself. And that has shown up for me so much, even in business, because it's about how do I nurture myself and take care of me. So that's important for me to pay attention to in my body graph, because if I don't structure my day, right, or my business around time for me, then I may move towards moving like a generator, which may be more go, go, go because I have sustainable energy. Where me as a projector, I need time to rest. I need time to really to sort of recalibrate, because when we're looking at the auras, each of these types have auras. And so projectors, for example, are people who, sort of bring out the aura of others. So here I am with you, Michelle, right? You're an emotional manifesting generator, right? And so I may pick up on something, within you that is going to, your will center is open, for example, or your splenic is open, which is all about our survival and our health and our well-being. Now I have something that's defined in those areas. That means that we're going to have a real interesting exchange because I'm going to be giving you something that maybe you're not seeing, right? Or vice versa, right? So that's something that we need to really understand the dynamic of that when we're engaging with others. And this could be your clients, this could be your people who work with you, who you're connecting with. It really gives so much information. So we don't look at everything sort of in the body graph of like, okay, let's just focus on the head. The head's all about inspiration. So if it's open, that means I'm taking in all of these ideas and inspiration that's happening around me, what does that mean? There's also conditioning there that we have to focus on deconditioning because maybe I could be a little indecisive and maybe I'm thinking there's too much information and I can't decide on what that is because it's so open, right? So we have to be able to look at everything holistically, in terms of our type, our strategy, our authority, etc.
So that was a really good example too. What I liked about all that is that what a good example that was too of how you use this in your life, where if you didn't have this connection that, oh, shock for me means learning. Shock for me means going into self-love. If you didn't know that, if you didn't do this work, then when shock happens, you could feel like a victim. When shock happens, right, you could get in a rabbit hole. But now you have a context to understand, oh, this is supposed to happen. This is actually the light coming in to give me more information. So maybe we could talk a little bit about, some of the benefits of using this. You've talked about, a little bit of the overview. Could we talk a little bit about using this in business a little bit more? Because that's really interesting.
Yeah. So, and I will just say for anybody who's listening, whether you've experienced human design, there's a lot of different angles, different practitioners out there, different methods sort of to approach human design. And I always like to say, because I do also follow others, who talk about human design. It's really important to connect with the person who aligns with you. And really what we're talking about here is alignment, right? When we're talking about human design, it's really about aligning with our soul purpose, what we're going to do. And ultimately, how do we make those decisions that are aligned with us, right? That's really what the key is. So first things first, I think it's important is that when we're thinking about human design in business, because I would need, multiple sessions to sort of dive through this, but here are some I think that are key. So number one, I think it's important to understand your design first. This is essential. It doesn't matter. You can run this chart for your business, by the way, as well. I do this the day that you initiated your business, you run the chart. It's super fun. And then you can sort of like see what kind of personality your business might have. And then you're able to also do your own. And then you can do a little bit of this comparison game to really see what some of the opportunities and challenges are that might come up, right? So for me, again, using sort of myself as an example, I know that I'm a projector, so I'm here to advise and guide others. So that for me is really about how do I position myself in a place and space because I'm here. I know that I have to wait for invitations, and it doesn't mean about going to the movies. By the way, it's not like I'm going to be sitting in the house like, hey, oh gosh, I can't go anywhere. And because that's one of the biggest things I often hear from projectors in particular. No, the big invitation, right? And really connecting to whatever your inner authority is, I think is going to be important. And so understanding your own design is key, right? So understand that if you're an emotional authority, so for you, for example, Michelle, being an emotional manifesting generator, what's interesting is that your sacral is defined, right? So for you, it's like, is this good for me? Is this not good for me? But that's not enough for you in particular because you're leading with emotion. And so for you, it's about feeling. Does this feel right for me? And it's not about in this moment. It's a matter of how does it feel for you over a couple of days. And so does that resonate with you?
Yeah, what's really funny about is before I took the test, I started teaching emotional intuition. And I'm literally like, it's been my thing for a while that I teach other people how to become emotionally intuitive. And then when I did my chart,
Yeah.
it was basically saying emotional intuition is my way that I work in the world. I was like, well, maybe that's why some people really resonate with what I teach. And some people are like, I'm having a hard time with that.
I love that. And that's a wonderful example of how you are leveraging your own type and your authority in your work, right? And one of the other things to keep in mind is that, typically, and I'll just sort of jump to this too, is that when we have these open centers, so open centers are an opportunity to sort of sell to others, right? So because we're selling to someone's shadow. So you have a defined emotional solar plexus. I'm looking at your chart. So you have a defined emotional solar plexus. And so for you, it's like, here, I have something to offer, right? And so there's a sense of attraction there, right? So that's something that's really, really important to keep in mind and consider, definitely in business when we're looking at the chart. So understanding your design, number one, is most important. I notice some people often like to go into the details, and there's lots of pieces connected to it. But this is the majority. This is 80%. It's your type and authority. So understand whether you're one of the 5 types. What does that mean? How do you show up? For example, manifesting generators, they need to test. They need to test multiple things at once. And that's part of their process. If you don't do that, you're going to feel like you're missing out. You're going to feel like you're stuck, right? And so that, I think, is an important element, when it comes to understanding that part. The other is your incarnation cross. And so your incarnation cross is really connected to your purpose. And how to find this, certainly when you run your chart, it'll tell you your incarnation cross is X. So for you, Michelle, it's the right angle. It's a right angle cross of the vessel of love. I think it's the vessel of love 1, right? So when we talk about right angle in incarnation crosses, it's about your own process. It's like your purpose is about your journey, your own process. What is that, right? And vessel of love is really about helping others. And it's funny because I'm also looking that you have the 25 as well, but it's connecting back to love for self, love for others, love for the community. How do we create more love, perhaps? With that, when your incarnation cross is a left angle, your left angle, it means it's about other people's lives, right? It's sort of a little bit more external. And just based on seeing also your profile numbers, there are 6 profile numbers, 1 through 6, and they each mean something different. You have a 1-3. I also have a 1-3 as well. And so it's about that investigative journey through sort of trials and tribulations, but it's internal. And learning and growing from that process is part of that journey, connected back to that love. Does that? Yeah.
Yes, I haven't done the connection to the love piece, but one of the things, just to bring this back to real life, because this is complicated stuff, but one of the things that I learned in getting that 1-3 number, I believe it was attached to that, was it gave me the permission that it's okay that every time my husband does something, I need to go back and check it to make sure it's. So for me, he finds that really annoying. He's like, I went up into the attic. It's fine. I'm like, but I have to see it.
Yeah.
I have to experience it
to
know whether or not it's true. It's not that I don't believe you.
Exactly.
It's that I have to go experience it or I can't settle.
You got it.
And so that gives me the permission to realize I'm not being a jerk. Right? I'm not trying to be controlling. I literally have a drive to see it for myself.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting with human design, really taught me about myself. And I see it now all the time.
And I think that the key word there, and maybe it's not even permission, but validation too, of just, hey, that thing that I thought is something that I thought about myself. Oh, okay. Now I have something that helps me feel more, and I don't ever like to use the word normal, right? But it's just sort of makes me feel human, in that sense. And to your point too, I remember somebody told me, like, you have, for me too, it's like, I have to experience it. And for you, it's maybe you have to experience it because you have to feel it. Whatever that piece is for you. So I think that's so important for us to really understand that, this is part of that design, right? It's part of understanding that as a manifesting generator, and that's getting into obviously more the profile numbers, but, we sort of connect with what resonates with us the most. But so the incarnation cross piece is really tied to your conscious sun. So basically, if you look at your body graph at the top, it's your conscious sun, conscious earth, and unconscious sun and unconscious earth. So it's literally the top two on the left side, top two on the right hand side. And that makes up your incarnation cross. I always recommend to sort of read about those gates, because the numbers that are there signify the gate in which that it's in. And then you'll see sort of a decimal point and a number after that. So for you, Michelle, for example, the first one is like 10.3. So the 3 is indicative of that profile. That's how it's being expressed. It's being expressed in that 3, which is really about the trials and the tribulations, sort of the, teaching others, right? Of those, it's sort of having comfort in failure, and fail forward. It's really about failing forward and how resiliency shows up and what you can teach others just from that experience, and how you become sort of more of who you are meant to become through that as well. So that's what that decimal means, sort of after that gate number. And so so that's what you would look at, basically the conscious sun, conscious earth on both sides. So it integrates the astrology. So the incarnation cross is also an important piece connected to sort of how we show up, how we're showing up when it comes to business. I do want to jump a little bit to Mercury. So Mercury is our planet of communication. Mercury often ties to marketing. How do we market what we have to offer? Obviously it's important for us to look at these astrological aspects. And then what you do is you essentially look at the gate that it's in, similar to what I just shared for the incarnation cross and the expression. And then you're able to read about it in terms of what you could be here to communicate. Many times we're also looking at our centers as well. That also gives us some information. And I know I'm being sort of a little bit more generic on that, because everyone's design and profile shares a different story. So it's important for us to really take a look at that. So Mercury is a huge one when it comes to how do we communicate? What are the messages we're here to communicate? We can go directly to that as well. Another is your structure. So if you're looking at how to structure your business, there's a couple places I do look at. The first one is environment. So if you're running a basic chart on Genetic Matrix or another website, let's say to run this, sometimes environment doesn't often show up right away. So you'll want to make sure that you have the chart that shows the environment. Now,
how do you make sure of that?
Yeah. So it'll say it on the foundational chart when you run that on the left-hand side underneath design, it'll say environment. Okay. If it does not say that, oftentimes some don't. Sometimes you do have to pay a little bit in order to get it. But this is a key piece. I think that's important because, for example, Michelle, you have mountains. It says mountains passive. Okay. And some people are like, huh? when we think about that. So
I do love the mountains.
Okay, awesome. So we have to think about the metaphor connected to mountains as well as the literal aspect, right? So mountains, they're big. It's about the wide view. Everywhere you go, you can sort of see mountains in the background, right? This is important, let's say, for you from an environmental perspective. It also could mean about needing to sort of be with people, but also taking time to separate yourself from people, to reflect, to think about sort of what you're offering business wise, right? To sort of look at the mountain view, to have that perspective is important. Breath work is also a really important piece connected to this. And it's really about like quiet and alone time and being, obviously certainly being out in nature, et cetera, but just sort of thinking about elevation. Mountains also are about elevation. So I always like to think about this as, Michelle, how do you help elevate others? How do you elevate? What is the opportunity for you to sort of elevate maybe your passion, your focus, your impact, and then others at the same time? So that's a couple of sort of tidbits connected to that. I don't know if that resonates sort of for you there.
Absolutely. Because I would even use that word a lot. Like to elevate our vibration, to elevate ourselves, elevate our lives, right?
So that, right, is important because it could also mean, how do you create structure within your business, right? How do you set yourself up for that elevation? How do you set yourself? And I keep thinking sort of like mountain, like not to say funnel, right? But like sort of where's it going to lead you to have that mountain, or what's your wide view, right? What's that big view in terms of the vision, right? Because manifesting generators are also here to be visionaries and leaders. And so structuring things around that are important. Maybe your office also you're seeing a mountain in the background. Maybe not where we are today, right? But right? Or you have, or maybe you do your vision planning where there's a mountain in the background, right? Those are all things that I think are important to consider. For example, for me, I'm kitchens dry. Funny that I grew up in a restaurant business, and it's really about co-working spaces and just having something in the center that's creative that I can sort of access and come back to, because it's about sort of that entrepreneurial spirit of creativity and watching the interaction of others. So if I'm solo for a long time, I lose my mindset and thinking. I need to be engaged with others in order to feed that creativity. So that's important structure for me, right? I can't sit in my office, four walls every day. That's not going to work for me in my business, right? So that's important to keep in. So just a couple of things sort of tied back to that. I could keep going. I got more to share.
If you have the time, we'll take a little bit. I mean, this is really fascinating what we're hearing so far about just these different aspects that we could apply to business. I would never have thought about looking into the environment more. I never did.
Yeah, the variables, I won't dive into it too much today, but there's another aspect called variables, which shares with us more about our digestion, which is also nutrition, but also digestion of information, right? So there's our cognition, sort of how do we take things in? What do we see, right? I think, yours, for example, Michelle, is peripheral. So it's one of those things where again, wide view. You've got all sort of in mind, right? Like you can sort of see all of things. And so there's a way for you're taking it all in. So if you're in, let's say you and I are sitting outside, right? We're eating a cafe. Here's my kitchen. We're eating at a cafe, and then there's a lot sort of going on around, right? Like we might be talking, but you're taking it all in.
Well, see, now I called that ADD. Maybe I don't. No.
And so there's benefit to that because, for two things. Number one, yes, I think it's important to also think about that as, okay, well, how much energy am I certainly taking in, right? The other is you're taking in so much information that it's actually informing you, because as a manifesting generator, you are here to inform and you are here to lead and do the work. And whether you think it or not, you're taking in from that as well. So it's so expanded from all of that energy because your intuition is sharing with you what's happening in the world. And so you're using that to help. So that's how I really sort of see it, is like you're taking in intuitively what's happening collectively. And so you're able to share that, which again is something that you could bring into, let's say, your business. The profile numbers I think are fascinating. I do want to dial back on those to talk a little bit about those, because I think they're one of the easiest places for us to look a bit in our business. So, the ones are the investigators. They're the ones really who are here to be the expert. Self-mastery. Hello. Anyone who's got a 1, 2, or 3 is really about the inside first. Anyone who's 4, 5, or 6 in terms of numbers, it's very external, meaning needing to engage collaboration maybe with others or learning in connection with others. The profiles 1, 2, 3 are very it's internal. It's really about what am I experiencing internally? What am I learning? I want to learn this. I want to master it. I want to know it. And oftentimes the ones are sort of like, I don't know enough. But you do. And then it goes back to based on sort of who's inviting you, or if you're here to respond, again, based on your strategy and your authority. Whether it's here to respond or wait for an invitation or whatnot. We didn't dive into that too much, but just want to share that that's an important piece that will guide sort of how this shows up for you.
It's really interesting that I just want to say that I'm just taking in some of this, and just so our listeners can also appreciate the different nuances that you're speaking to in me. And I hope all our listeners go on and take this, have this experience, go on, follow the website, maybe even come back and listen to this again.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing so much that I had not before, like my procrastinating, right? Because I never know enough. So I procrastinate. It's how I avoid everything. It's just through learning, right? And so I bet other people, right?
I am raising my hand. Nobody can see me, but I'm raising my hand too.
I think raise your hand if you procrastinate, right? And I think there's probably a lot of people out there that do and can resonate with this in their charts. So interesting.
Yeah. And, once you get to sort of variables, which really, really dives in a little bit into structure in terms of the arrows, I'm a all right sort of flowing, which is all about flow and receptivity, not necessarily strategic. So if you're on the left arrow in terms of variable, you're more strategic. And, sort of when we think about a little bit of like masculine and feminine energy, the right is considered more the feminine energy, the left considered the more masculine. And we're moving and shifting as a culture more towards right, which is more flow, more how do we, a little bit more of the self out there, which I think is interesting, but things to consider. So I just want to briefly go through all the profiles. So if you're a 2, you're someone who's gifted. You're gifted. It's called hermit energy, and it's really about being alone, and that your gifts are designed to be called out by others. So being around others is essential because then people are able to recognize your gifts. So if you have a 2 in your profile, that's important to sort of cultivate and really think about the natural talent and ability that you have, and then who you're around in order for them to fully sort of recognize you in a sense, to pull you out. Sometimes I find that the 2s are like hiding, and they need someone to like pull them out to be like, hey, you've got this amazing talent. You should be doing X, Y, Z, or hey, you should be honing in this talent a little bit more. So something to consider there. The 3s, I feel like we talked a little bit about. They're my, and I don't want to confuse 3s with manifesting generators, okay? Because you could be a manifester, another type, right? With this, it can feel a little bit like the manifesting generator testing of different things because you're experimenting, super entrepreneurial, which Michelle has, like in her chart, or her channels and her gates sort of scream entrepreneurship, which is amazing, but it's the experiencer. It's about somebody who learns from that particular experiencing, and they're also here to challenge the status quo based on that. So that's something I think that is really important. Number 4, my 4s. You are connectors. You're the networkers. Build your groups, social media, in-person communities, LinkedIn, right? Wherever you are, like your business comes from that network. So it is great. Your network is your network. I want you to think about that and focus your energy and attention on that. And naturally it will happen. I will tell you, I have a manifester, someone who I coach who's a manifester, and she's got a marketing company and she's got a foreigner profile. It just happens naturally. And so really cultivate that. It is super important because that's how you become magnetic. Your magnetism is what draws people in. If you're a 5, you're a transformer. You're here to lead. You're teaching. You're sharing, right? You also trigger people in good ways because you are here to problem solve and break through old ways and create more innovation. So if you're not focusing on innovation in your business and focusing on that specifically, here's your invitation to do that. And you are going to push buttons, and it's okay. Because
here's your permission.
I'll give you permission to do that. If you're a 6, You are someone who, 6 is a little bit interesting because you are the role model. You're the one who people are watching. And typically there's a phase within this. There are 3 phases. In a 6, until 30, you're experimenting and sort of making mistakes while you're discovering as much as you can. From 30 to 50, it's about sort of stepping back and then you process all those lessons. And then 50, you're embodying your authentic self. So there's a little bit of a process with that. So some people might be a 6'2", let's say you're a 6'2" profile, right? Let's say someone who is sort of moving through this process and they've got that 2 that, it's like, I gotta, you want to go in and reflect and I've got to pull you out, right? It's time for you to come out. You've done your reflection, my 6ers and my 2s. So that's an important part, to consider. So the combination of these, the first line that you have is conscious, means you know what this is. It's something that you firmly sort of get. The second one is unconscious, which means is that it's what others seen you. And so our goal is to really integrate the 2. And as we decondition, right, the key part to human design is really about deconditioning and moving through the shadow aspects of ourselves to really fully embrace who we are in alignment. So
Love that.
those are some a couple key pieces there to consider. And I do have I can throw out some gates and channels for some folks who have them to keep in mind if we have some more time.
You've got whatever you got, because I know we are going to be a little crunched. You've got, 6 minutes, so go right ahead.
All right. Awesome. Couple of things. So a few gates and channels for you all that are listening that may be helpful, connected to business. I'm using you as an example again, Michelle.
Go for it. I'm learning.
Michelle's got gate 34 defined. So again, just clarifying on these gates connect to the 64. We're thinking about the I Ching. And what I often recommend is that these 64 gates, go read about them. They're fascinating. This is where I invite you also to go into the gene keys, because they also share the 64 gates and how to really shift through the shadows so you can see the gift and truly empower and embody who you ultimately are. I think that that's been the most helpful thing in working with clients and working with myself and really understanding how I show up with others as a coach and even as a facilitator. So gate 34 defined, guess what? It's the gate in leadership. So this is about influence and inspiration. So it's defined for Michelle. So I like to think about these as like your strengths. What are those things that are really popping out for you? And so how does leadership, so asking yourself, where might I tap into more of a leadership role? How can I lead something that I'm working on now? What time do I need to spend or dedicate into leading? What does that look like? So there's opportunities to invite you into really thinking about that for yourself. And that includes influence as well, by the way. She also has the 10-20 activated. So this is the I like to call the 10-20 and sort of the 34-20s are the entrepreneurial awakening sort of gates. So innovation, breakthroughs, new ideas, concepts in the world. So, I'm going to sit here and say, hey, Michelle, what new idea or concept do you have in mind, perhaps, that you'd like to offer into the world? And let's say, Michelle, you haven't thought about that yet, right? Like hypothetically, then that's an opportunity for you to think about where you might focus your energy and attention when it comes to maybe your business. You're considered a thought leader, right? Someone who's here to lead and do great things. So gate 18, I have gate 18 as well. And actually you have that in the conscious and unconscious, so it's got both black and red colors there. So aware and not aware, right? So opportunity to engage with others to sort of learn about how that might be showing up for you. So, this is about the joy in life. That channel is really, really interesting. The 18, even 58, but you're designed to encourage others to release what no longer benefits them. Right?
Oh,
Let that go.
that makes sense.
Right? Let that go.
Literally what I do every day.
Right? There you go. Right. So you're embodying that in the work that you're doing. For those separate to you, I don't think you have gate 47, but for those who do have gate 47, you're here to sell certainty through taking the right action, making the right decision. So we can look at these some of these gates as like what am I here to sell? What am I here to help? What am I here to sell? What am I here to help others through with? In Michelle's case, because she's got that 1-3 profile, I'm going to think about the fact that it's an internal transformational journey that she's guiding others through, but maybe the innovation that she's having is bigger than, right? So it's something to really consider. I think that's important there. So I will pause there.
Oh my gosh, Connie, you're a powerhouse when it comes to human design. I can just see, you guys can't see Connie, but I'm watching her as we're talking. And you can see that she could just burst with the amount of information that you have on this.
My one is like,
yeah, so much exciting stuff. So we definitely need to get to, before we end here, how can people work with you? How can they learn from you? This is really complicated stuff, and everybody here could benefit so much to learning more about themselves through this process. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how people could work with you.
You bet. So I think the important part is most people will start with, I want to understand and learn the system. And I often say, no, it's not about learning the system. It's about understanding you and connecting with the pieces within you. Every single part of this past 8-year journey that I've had has been about, I'm going to go with my inner authority. So having a splenic authority is really about intuition in the moment, right? Someone who has sacral authority it's all about yes or no questions, right? So, so for all of you generators, manifesting generators, start asking yourself yes or no questions. Okay. If they don't feel absolute yeses, it's a no. Let it go. Stop contemplating. Keep moving. But for Michelle, she's got emotional. So she needs to wait a couple days.
It's not that simple for me. No,
it's not that simple. No, it is. But again, it's about us connecting to trusting ourselves. The spleen is about trust. That splenic aspect within us is about trust. So number one, I think it's important that if you do come to work with me, that it's about understanding that it's not learning the system first. It's about really having an invitation to reflect on who you are, to connect with you and start there. And there is a deconditioning process that does happen because we do have to move and sort of shift through those pieces that we feel mentally are getting in the way and also soulfully that are there. So, we're going into layers of onion pieces. And so starting at the beginning is the most important. I know we're in a rush to sort of get to the end and figure it all out. I'm still trying to understand everything. I mean, there's planetary impact. There's so much more connected to human design we don't have time to go through today. But first and foremost, I think what it does is it gives you an opportunity to learn deeply about yourself. I will also say it's only a system. So it's not the rule book, right? You get to decide. But it really has wonderful insight. And it's like a companion, where you get to sort of check in and then you get to decide what is true for you. And so happy to work with you if that sounds like it works for you and it'll is in alignment. I integrate human design and other tools as well in the work that I do. You can go to my website, soulslickwellness.com. There is a drop down for human design readings. Our first initial reading is 90 minutes just to sort of go over basics. And there are more sort of after if you'd like to continue to work, as well as coaching opportunities connected towards really, truly living in an aligned way.
Awesome, Connie. I'm going to have all your information in the show notes, so you'll have easy access to however you can connect with Connie. She's here to help. And I'm so appreciative, Connie, for taking the time. I know you had a busy schedule today. Again, just such a powerhouse on all this information. I can just feel your energy. I just feel really high right now. Just really
elevated.
I'm so elevated. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. And let's connect soon.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers, until next time.